Well, Dr. Amerine, welcome. Thank you very much for spending time with us today. And for those who might not know about you, tell us just a little bit about yourself and your practice in Lafayette, please.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Lisa Amerine. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I have been practicing naturopathic medicine in Lafayette, Colorado, since 2004. So I've been here quite a while now. My passion in medicine is really helping to stimulate the body to heal, primarily using homeopathy and lifestyle medicine. So I love to see people. Our bodies always have this innate ability to heal, and I love to be able to use homeopathy to stimulate the body to heal, and then paying attention to lifestyle, making sure that we have all the right components so our body can do what it needs to do.
Great. Well, a while back, you took a medical boat trip to Brazil, and you did that on your own time, and we were just delighted to hear about that. Tell us just a little bit about that. Who organized it, and who you served, and uh, how it went.
Sure. So it would have been almost a year ago now that I went to Brazil. I've actually gone several times, and it's a mission trip organized by our church, Calvary Bible Church, and we team up with a church down in Manaus, in Brazil, the center of Brazil, where we then get on a boat and we go down the Amazon River into the different tributaries to provide medical care to the people who live along the river people. Oftentimes, the people who live along the river in the Amazon, along the Amazon River, are forgotten about or looked down upon. And so they're oftentimes forgotten, and yet they need medical and healthcare as well. So what happens is we team up and we go down to the tributaries, and we land in these little villages, and our boat has a medical unit on the lower level, and people will line up to get medical care. So there might be, I think last year on the trip we went, there were 3 doctors and there were 2 dentists that were part of the trip. And so it's really providing healthcare to these people along the river in the Amazon.
Well, that is terrific, and I'm sure they appreciate that a great deal. And this last time, for the first time, you had Boulder Salt among your toolkit and medicines. Talk a little bit about the role it played.
Sure. So one of the great things that I get to be a part of on this trip is to use medicine that's so simple that can really help people. And so one of those, of course, was Boulder Salt. And it's interesting because you would think people living at the equator all the time would tolerate the heat well. Well, that's not necessarily true. Just like here, some people do well in the heat, some people don't. Some people do well at altitude, some people do well at sea level. The same individualization happens on the Amazon River. And so I would use it frequently. And there was 3 case scenarios I used it a lot. One is for people, if they were coming onto the boat, and this was acutely, they were coming onto the boat and they had been standing in the sun all day long. They were a bit nervous to meet their doctors. It's kind of cute because to meet a doctor is a big deal, and so they'll get dressed up in the best clothes that they have, which isn't necessarily much, and then they stand in the heat in the anticipation of getting ready to meet their doctor, and waiting for a very long time is a lot. And so they would be a little bit nervous. They would get really, really hot. Their electrolytes would be off a little bit. They would be faint. They would be dizzy. So what I would have them do almost immediately would be take a pinch of the Boulder Salt followed by a little bit of water, and they would perk right back up. It's a great, great little trick for an acute in the moment. So that was one thing I did a lot. The other thing I used a lot was people work really hard out there, and they sweat a lot because it's really humid. And so many of the workers would walk several miles to get to different fields to do work to provide for their villages. And again, really, really labor intensive. And so if they would begin to feel lightheaded, or they would begin to not feel so great because of the heat of the sun, if they were back home, I would have them take a little spoon. They didn't have measuring spoons, so I couldn't say take a teaspoon, but I could say take a little tiny spoonful, put some in water and drink it to replace the electrolytes. Or again, at my bare minimum, I would have them take 3 pinches of the Boulder Salt and follow it by water. And if they were feeling weak or lightheaded or like they didn't have the endurance to keep going, that would balance their electrolytes. They would drink some water thereafter. They would become hydrated and they would have the energy and endurance to go forward. And then in Brazil, the river is no different than any other city. Soccer is huge,
Mm.
and they play soccer, and they play and play and play. And so again, if the kids were running and running and running and then feeling not so great, you could use this to balance something back. So that's kind of the little fun, acute. I would teach the parents how to do that. But really, for the most part, it was the people standing directly in the heat or out working that would bring them right back, and it was really great to see.
Wow, that's really something. And you also make Boulder Salt available to the patients that you serve in your practice in Lafayette.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about the benefits that you as a practitioner appreciate the most and what you like the best about it for yourself when you use it.
Oh yeah. Well, so I do. I carry it in my office. In fact, when I first found Boulder Salt, it was actually at another store, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. So I picked up a little packet, and then I went home and researched it and looked at it. And I think the next day we called and said, hey, we want to set up an account because the electrolyte balance was huge. So many times our electrolytes get off for so many reasons. Maybe we're not feeling well. Maybe someone's pregnant and they're really nauseous. Maybe it's an athlete who's running and doing high endurance workouts and they feel weak afterwards. Maybe it's somebody who's just not well hydrated and their electrolytes are off, and I can use the Boulder Salt, and then I can have them add in lots and lots of water, and their electrolytes will balance out. So in my office, I send it home with patients all the time. If anyone is complaining of fatigue or dizziness, they go home with Boulder Salt. All of my athletes, especially my high endurance athletes, go home with it. You never know if you don't feel well. I'm fairly athletic myself, and there was a time I thought I was hydrated well. I was used to working out. I eat a pretty clean diet, but that particular day, I was really weak and really dizzy. And so I added in some electrolytes from the Boulder Salt. And really within 2 or 3 minutes, I was fine and I was able to keep going. And so I use it a lot for any kind of weakness, whether it's illness related or sports or athletes or heat induced.
Wow. Well, Dr. Amerine, thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with us today. And thank you for providing the care you do here in Boulder County and obviously to people far and wide. And thanks again for sharing the details of your trip and your Boulder Salt experience with us today.
Sure, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for asking and letting me share.